There's a very interesting concept of meeting your needs. For instance, Abraham Maslow, a psychologist, once came out with this idea of a pyramid. And he said, first you have to have your physiological needs met. I'd say for food, shelter, temperature, that kind of thing. And then he said safety, love and belonging, esteem, and self-actualization last. But have you ever heard people say that they want money for security? Perhaps that is talking about Maslow's physiological and safety concepts as the first two that he puts on the pyramid. But it strikes me that this can go on forever, trying to get safety, especially. Trying to get a lock on it, trying to wire it tight. For when do you have enough safety? When do you have lined up the best possible doctors for end of life? The best possible, quote, nursing home? The best possible brain surgeon and cancer specialist? When do you have just enough money? Is billions and billions enough, even? When are you going to have the best cryogenic freezing apparatus lined up so you could live forever, theoretically, by having your body frozen? Then you're going to worry about battery backup for the freezers. And it goes on and on and on. So how can we possibly say, like Maslow said, our first needs are physiological and safety, or what you might call security? Now, there are the spiritual approaches that might say, well, what you need to do is line up a way of living forever. Or at least that's the religious approach. I would not call that the spiritual approach. And thereby achieving, quote, security or your needs met that way. If you can't have them met now, you'll know they'll be guaranteed someday. Now, Aaron Beck, Dr. Aaron Beck, has talked about another idea. There's a very short 7-minute video on YouTube. He is from the cognitive behavioral view, and he says, in his opinion, that almost all psychiatric problems have an underlying concept of catastrophizing. And seems to me then that ties in a whole lot with the psychiatric idea in America of paranoia. For when does something become paranoia in our minds, except in as much as it's something we're catastrophizing, not something you'd call discomforting or something you wish wouldn't happen. Catastrophe in Christian biblical terms being hellfire damnation forever and ever, ever, with no respite. And we humans seem to conjure that there are other forms of catastrophe just as equal. In other words, other forms of catastrophe other than flames. So it seems to me that Maslow could well be wrong in talking about a hierarchy of needs like physiological and safety, or I would basically say security needs first. For what better or greater need do we have than not to catastrophize anything at all? And that's not on his list one iota. And to me, that is why so many people with considerable sums of money struggle greatly with feeling secure nonetheless, because they are catastrophizing a great many things, in my opinion. And so I think Maslow could stand to be examined a little closer as per his concept of a hierarchy of needs. And one last mention then, I'd say if we ponder it, why else would some people opt to go to war knowing they might never come back alive or come back maimed physically or emotionally. Why would they do this unless they don't catastrophize death and thus living physically or not, or your length of physical lifespan is not the top priority to them. It's not on their hierarchy of needs. What is what they may have dealt with better than a lot of people, theoretically anyway, and that is not catastrophizing as much as the average person or certain groups of people. So I would say if we want a hierarchy of needs, the first and foremost by far is the need to not catastrophize things. Everything else then being chump change as to what we really need. Case in point, you can live very well on very little. But the minute you want to catastrophize something, your needs in every which way are going to go up astronomically, I would say.